Good evening, buonanotte. I will tell you a little bit about how I think we can preserve heritage while still contribute to the prevention of climate change. But thank you for the introduction. I will introduce myself a little bit more to you right now. This is my house. It's a monument. These are my toothbrushes. This is my electric car and charging station with solar power. This is my browser. And this is my toilet paper. Well, it's actually not paper, it's cloth. Feels nice, won't go into the details. I'll come back to it later. I'm an idealist, I'm not a perfectionist, but in my opinion, as an idealist, you have to question your own behavior at all times and see what I can do to improve my behavior. And I take action. So back to the toilet. If, for instance, I stop using toilet paper, as I did a few years ago, it makes no difference at all. If half of the world population would stop using toilet paper, half of 7.7 billion people would stop using 100 rolls of toilet paper a year, and it takes one tree to produce 1,500 rolls of toilet paper, would save 250 million trees each and every year. Well, think about that. When I was 15, I was in a very boring geography class at my college with a not so nice teacher. But he told me one thing that stuck to me from that point on and sticks to me till today. He told me that in the Netherlands, in about 30 years, if we wouldn't do anything about climate change that was on its way, we would have the climate of the south of France, which I really liked because I don't like the cold. But then he told me that also the climate of the Sahara would come into the south of Europe, in Spain, Italy, Greece, Turkey. That frightened me. And last year, I visited my mother in the Netherlands, spent the night at her house. It was 38 degrees at night. We had the climate of the south of France, and she didn't have air conditioning yet. So it's something personal, but it's not only personal. It also invades my area of work. And I think we all need to lead by example, however small your audience is, whether it's your children at home, your colleagues at work, or whatever walk of life you're in. To monuments. If you Google monuments and climate change, you get a lot of results, as of any subject. But unfortunately, majority of the results that you get, and the first ones that pop up, show you how monuments are threatened by climate change. And this is very true. Sea levels rising, storms, breaking down our monuments, getting rid of our cultural heritage. But what I would like to know is not how monuments are part of the problem, but how they could form part of the solution. I will now bore you with some facts, very, very slight facts. The International Energy Agency, which has 30 member countries and 8 association countries, in cooperation with the UN Environment Programme, publishes every year a report that gives you the global status on buildings and construction. This comes straight out of their 2019 report. And as was told you in the last video, building and construction takes up almost 39% of global CO2 emissions, which is an incredible amount. And while we're working on driving electric cars, lowering the emission of transport, building is still growing. Our population, world population, is growing, so there's a growing demand for houses, offices, other workspaces, shops. The sourcing of materials has an enormous impact on our environment. And what strikes me every time I read this report or the new report is that over the last 9 years, the one thing that kept on growing and growing is by 19% over the last 9 years is the use of energy used by buildings for either heating or cooling, as we do in Aruba. And especially there's an incredible growth in very strong increase in space cooling in hot areas such as Aruba. What can we do? I think we should look into the past to find some future solutions. What would our grandparents, our great-grandparents have done? And they did some amazing things. They collected water in cisterns, regenbak, as we call them here. They made thick walls that insulate. They built their houses so the wind would go through, as Robert Jan explained. For our industries, like the gold mining industry in Bushiribana, they used windmills. And surely they won't have looked exactly like this, but we found the foundations of the 4 windmills that were there to give the energy to the gold mill company. So we are starting to use and reuse old materials. Instead of the cement, the CO2 emitting cement that we just heard, we are starting to reuse lime. We also try to teach people how to work with lime because it's something that we have forgotten here in Aruba. And with beautiful results. This is the one and only lime kiln still standing in Aruba, now fully restored with its original materials. And sometimes if we look into the past for future solutions, things could be no more simpler than just walk instead of take the car. You should compare the benefits of contemporary systems with old systems, and sometimes simpler is smarter, and old systems could work better than current ones. And think big, because the technology most of the time is already there. We just have to implement it. So old insights, like the sun is hot, maybe it can warm my food, you can translate that with modern technology into, for example, solar ovens. Why don't we use them in Aruba? No electricity needed, slow cooking, nice food. And going back to the toilet, sorry to bother you. Why are we flushing all our toilets with perfectly drinkable water? Well, we could compost and use this compost to create our agriculture. And it's not just about technology. Building technology is important, but it's also about economics. When you start reusing your buildings, restoring them, renovating them, you have less material costs and you have more labor. So you need more people to work. You create some more opportunities for people to find work. It's labor-oriented. You have the social aspect. Restorations seem to have a snowball effect worldwide, and in Aruba we see the same thing. As soon as our foundation finishes up one building, we see the neighbors coming out and start painting their building, talking to each other, sharing stories. Because emotions are also part of the non-technical part of restoration. Sharing stories helps creating and saving cultures, communities, and sometimes even whole countries. Now to an example of what we did. Meet Uncle Louis. He's not my uncle, but he was famous here in Aruba. He started his shop in San Nicolas in 1951. Made a nice building. Fortunately, we have some pictures of it. After that, it was not used and it was empty for a long, long time. It was changed in a lot of ways. And right now, we restored it back to its former glory. It is the home, the office of our Department of Nature. So we reused the building. While the director at first might have wanted a new building, eventually he chose to recycle a building. By limiting its footprint, he also made the choice to use open office space instead of different offices. And even while restoring it, we had some surprises. We planned to put in new floor tiles, but when we removed the old floor, we found some old ones. We restored them, and just see how beautiful the end result was. We put solar panels on the roof. We collect water from the air conditioning units, catch rainwater, put an underground tank. We introduced a green wall. We take care of the environment. We are planning to put in an electrical vehicle charging station, solar-powered street lights. We did roof insulation, and when after the first use, there was too much sunlight coming in and people looking inwards, Plastic Beach Party helped us with recycled plastic, as Christy explained, to make some panels that let sunlight in, but keep all the nosy people out. We're not perfect. We could have done more. We could have insulated all the walls. We could have used double glazing. We could use reused wood. And we could have used more natural light, like for instance, the solar tube, which converts sunlight, direct sunlight, into diverse light into your building. But the problem is that many of those products are not widely and readily available in Aruba, and we have to import them all. Now, before talking about the actions that I think we should all take, I would like to introduce something to you. I think you are all aware of FOMO, the fear of missing out. You're not looking at your phones right now, but maybe you're missing something. It is the fear of change. FOC, sorry for the word, but let it stick to you. For us to change our behavior, and we have noticed this in other speeches today as well, is very, very difficult. And I will not go very deep into it because there are brilliant TEDx speeches about it. But just as an example, me as an idealist, living in the Netherlands, always cold, it took me 2 years to lower my central heating system by 2 degrees. So I know what this is. There is a fear of change, but ask yourself, what is your fear? Why don't you change? Why don't you collect the plastic? And why don't you lower your temperature in your house? And this is countdown. So I will take you in a countdown of 10 steps of the actions that I think that are necessary and that we are trying to take at the moment. Number 10, change your behavior. Tonight we're in an un-air-conditioned room, and I think we're all happy. Why should we have conferences, workspaces that are all made for people wearing thick clothes, European clothes, while us women always wearing shawls and cardigans to keep warm? Maybe we should change our behavior. Reuse, number 9, city areas. We could build a bit more dense into our towns so that we are not sprawling into nature. There are a lot of empty buildings, empty plots that we could start reusing before building something new. Respect, in that case, old city structures and try to build around it. Reuse and recycle materials. I won't go into that because it's too easy. Number 7, want less. Do I need this bigger house? Do I need a bigger office? Do I need the new clothes? And limit your footprint. Number 6, design to demolish. Not all buildings will become monuments. Most of them will be torn down in about 40, 50, with some luck, 100 years. If you design a building with its demolishment in mind, we call this circular economy, the building materials could be reused. And how simple would it be in Aruba if we would have a database of all the materials that we receive from demolishing? Could work. 5, adjust building codes. Well, even 100 years, a cistern was obligatory here in Aruba. It's not any longer. You could reintroduce that while introducing rules for insulation of your walls, your windows, and your roof. Number 4, we're almost getting to number 1. Adapt education to old, or in that case, modern techniques. techniques that we forgot that used to be very useful in the past, but that we all have forgotten. We have to reintroduce them. There are some people still knowledgeable enough to teach us. Number 3, clever design the exploitation of your building. Put your insulation, put your solar powers, use wind energy, reuse water from your air conditioning units. Your plants will be so grateful. And use energy-efficient installations. The technique is already there. Number 2, it's not about technique, but if you are confronted with a problem, a challenge, a design, rerun your ideas with somebody else. Ask me, ask someone else. Is this a good idea, or could I do it differently? Do not choose the standard solution. And number 1, reuse buildings. Preferably choose monuments, because that would be ideal. You save your history, you save your CO2. And in closing, I would like to recycle right now something. I will recycle a slogan. In life and in work, I think we all should enjoy the happy feeling of contributing to a solution instead of being part of the problem. So just do it. Thank you.